I want to read some stuff coming from, to document some things. I want to read some stuff coming from Ledbetter. We got the book, The Astrobody, which has got A.E. Powell that's dealing with Ledbetter and Annie Besant. And there's another book that we're going to get next week called The Astroplanes by Ledbetter. C.W. Ledbetter, white boy. But anyway, to go into this, I want to explain something that you've heard. How many people have read the ISIS papers by Frances Cress Welsing? Whatever. Anyway, she said, well, her theory is she never did buy that mutated. Because in all her stuff mutated in the Ice Age. Because in all her stuff, because when I first started hearing about this stuff, I said, dang, I heard a black scholar talking about this other than Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I remember her saying at one time in the Nile Valley, a group of women started mutating. Started giving these mutants. And they forced them into Europe. And I said, well, this stuff is sounding more and more like what would happen if this white man is in fact a created man. Because the Jakub story talks about putting them into the caves and hills. So I said, let me go back to Frances Cress. Go get the ISIS papers again. Look back in it. And in one of these parts, I can't get, I'll just wing it. I'll tell you out of my head. In one of these parts, she talks about this mutation and these people being kicked out all over the world. And they tell you about it in the Bible, but they use the word leprosy as a method of telling you these people being kicked out. It's also the same story if you go and get the chorus fragments. So if you go and get the works of Josephus, the complete works, in the article against Apion, where they're talking about Manetho, when the Greeks came in and said, well, what about these Hebrews being kicked out of Egypt? Not being kicked out, fleeing from Egypt, and the Red Sea and the whole biblical exodus. They said, oh man, the real story is about that. We kicked a group of people out that were Set worshippers. This is what Manetho said. The real story is we kicked a group of people out that were Set worshippers. And in that part they say these people, we put them on an island first, and in this island they caught leprosy and all this type of stuff. But that leprosy is talking about a mutation that they are explaining in the Bible. So in this part, she gets, I said, where is she getting her information? And what she did is there's a 1975 article. Can't think of the man, you have to get the book. A 1975 article by some white boy that's explaining mutation and tracing it on how these people who had mutated, or black people who had mutated all over the world and been kicked out. We know behind that is a sexual tantra practice that I just talked about. He didn't go that far, but he didn't go that far in the article, but he knew what was going on because he used the code word in his introduction, in the contents. And he talks about all this, and this is where she's getting her information from, about this mutant. But one thing he did, and I knew the white boys, and I knew the white boy was only something when he did it. I said, I bet that cracker doctor was into the occult, which is tied into the Theosophical Society, the Golden Dawn, the OTO with Aleister Crowley, the Illuminati, New World Order. You see what I'm saying? I said, I bet this cracker was in here to even make an article like this, because all doctors and lawyers and people in the higher realms are into the occult. That's right. Right? That's right. Okay, I said, well, this is something. And in his article, when he explains it in the 1975 article, he simply puts in the contents that this article is called the Kuna Moonchild Albinism. And I said, oh, I got you now. He said Moonchild. And I know what the Moonchild is. Now let me explain what the Moonchild is. Aleister Crowley, who is the greatest occult member of the occult ceremonial magician of all times in England. He's the greatest of all. He went to Hemmitt. Let me go into this real quick. He went to Hemmitt. He went into this, he got into the occult practices when he was a young boy. And by, I think he was 21 or something, he went to Hemmitt. And he went over there and the ultimate thing in this ritual is he went over there and said he was so bold, he went over there in Hemmitt and screwed some white boys in the behind over there. Because remember now, what you got to do in these secret societies, when you go a certain point, the main thing you do when you get to the highest levels is you got to screw one of your partners in the behind. excuse me if I'm saying this stuff in front of some kids, but we got to tell the truth. You got to screw some of these people. So Bush and all these boys, when they're getting initiated, they got to do it. Why? Because they understand one thing that we understood too. You see, in ancient Egyptian mystery schools, the first thing to do to go to higher realms, if you're going to evolve to be, you got to kill that doggone ego, because the ego is everything to get. We as black people are jealous of each other. We go, and it's all about that ego or some part of that self-esteem. So the best thing you got to do, if you got to be loyal brothers, is you got to kill that ego. If the charter, the organization don't bind you together. Killing that ego binds you together as brothers. Well, we could do that because we're God people and our nature is that way. Well, damn, they're the beast. They couldn't do it that way. So the best way to kill the ego is you duke one of your partners in the behind. And therefore, you got it. He a man, right? And if he jump all bad with you, you go, I knew something about you. Humble him down, you see? That's how they became humble.
Talking about Shriners now.
Right. This is one thing they got to do. Not in ours, but in theirs. Because they're the devil. If they want to come anywhere close to getting like God, they got to kill that ego. So they got to stick them in the butt. Bush, we know that now. We know that the boy, the black Jesus, what's the black man? Bill Clinton, the black Jesus for all black people love this guy. Niggas dancing as black Jesus for black people. We know that he is in a sister fraternity. I think it's called the Skull and, not the Skull and Bone. The Skull and Key or something like that. Skull and Key, which is a sister fraternity to the Skull and Bone. So
and
you
a
know
Bilderberger. He's a Bilderberger.
Yeah, he's a Bilderberger. We know he's a Bilderberger. The Bilderberger elected him to be the next president in 1990. But we know also too.
He got stabbed and scrolling.
That's right. He done got stuck. That key done got stuck in his hole. Okay, back to the story. Aleister Crowley goes to England, goes to Europe, and when he's there, he's into the occult, so he goes into a trance and the yoga and all, and he puts his wife into the trance. And what happens with her is some entity comes in her and starts communicating to him through her, saying, we know who you are. We know who you are. I'll tell you some books to get where you can read all this. So he immediately takes her and takes her to the British Museum, or one of these, not the British Museum, the Cairo Museum, a smaller museum in Cairo, because there's a Cairo and there's another one. Takes her there and said, what in this room is doing this to you? And she went up to a stela, which is, and God, I hope I got a picture of it, which is a slate. A stela is a type of slate or a tablet. And on this tablet, it has a priest of set type and in color. And it's an actual priest that lived in the late 20th dynasty. It's one of those dynasties. And he got kicked out of Hemmitt for practicing set, and he vowed to get back. See how powerful our people are? Right or wrong, you got to believe one thing. You ain't going to get out of this worshiping God. You got to get out of this by becoming God. Otherwise, the people who don't become God, when I get into this, I'm going to get into this solution. People who don't become God, you finish. You see what I'm saying? Not the creator, but God. You got to become the direct manifestation of the microcosm. That what is up there, the macrocosm. You got to become that. Now, the son of Bum. Right. Brother from Marsh Brown wrote a book on that. Anyway, so he goes in and she sits down and she's giving him this stuff, this thing, and she starts translating this stuff, writing it down as she's telling him, and he translates this book of law. Now in this book of law, he said this is going to be the religion for the white people in the eons to come. Now to make a long story short, he writes a book. Now, let me tell you, he starts the AA, which is called the Silver Star, which is supposed to be serious. And he got a group of people that's dedicated. Now, let me understand. Now, this is the key part, because I'm going to tell you what's going on in these secret societies that you've been wondering all these years, what's going on. Well, supposedly, Mabel Blavatsky and them, they knew by getting these papyruses out of Egypt, that their time was going to end soon because they were on a low level. So they said, what we must do is get into the occult sciences, the metaphysical sciences of the New Age, as we call it now, to rise to a high level and maybe we can prolong our existence on this earth, or maybe we might be able to come God. You see? They say that for what it is, it's supposed to be a key, and we're going to die trying. And up to this point, nobody has done it, so we know they're on their way out. But listen. Anyway, the OTO, which means Ordo Templar Orient, is a group that Aleister Crowley was the head of, and the AA, which means something else. Anyway, these groups are mainly,